Hey, this is Passy from Passy's World of ICT, the guy with the white hat. And this is another lesson on the Southern Dog Club. We're trying to get a client ready. And in this lesson, we're going to be adding client form buttons. So this lesson's all about how you add your own custom buttons onto forms. So in the last lesson, the splash screen, we took away the ribbon and cleaned up the interface quite a lot. And now what we need to do is on these forms, we're going to have some buttons. So we're going to have down the bottom here a whole bank of buttons, as you can see. And they're going to be the previous record, next record, make a new record, save a record, delete the current record, and a close button to close the form. Because notice we've taken the X and the clutter off here and cleaned this right up. And this will make it easier for users. They can do everything down the bottom. They don't have to use these tiny little arrows and try and find that new sunshine symbol or whatever it is down here for a new record. They can just click the new here. So they can do all of their work on this button, this bank of buttons, and that will make it a lot easier for them. So it'll probably be best if we show you that exactly what we mean, how the database is going to look at the end of this lesson. Okay, so when this lesson's completed, this is what we're going to have. You click the database to start up. It launches a splash screen, as it did in the last lesson, and then it comes straight to the main menu. And notice we've got a clean interface here with no access components at all. It's all cleaned up and customized. And what we're going to do is when you open the members screen form, if you click on here, notice the main menu's disappeared and all we see is the screen form in a clean interface. We can use these next button here to go through the records. Notice when we get to the very end, the next grays out. So we'll be doing that in this lesson. And we do the previous button, and when it gets back to the beginning, it grays out, so you can't do any more. All right, now if we wanted to add a new record, all we have to do is click new here, and we'll just add a new record. Okay, so last name. Okay, we'll pause the video here and come back when we've finished. Okay, so here is the new record that we've typed in, and so that's all ready to go. Now, of course, the picture isn't a picture of Passy. What that'll do is in the next lesson, we're going to fix all that up so that there'll be another button where you can add your own custom photo in, but that's too big to fit into this lesson. So that will be the next lesson. But what we need to do now is save that. So we click the save button and it should save that record. So if we close the form, and let's just go have a look at the dogs form, it's got a similar thing. It's got this bank of buttons at the bottom where you can previous and next through the records. You can go backwards if you need to. You can add a new record. You can save. So if you save someone's phone number here, if you change it, we can do a save on that to save the record. You can delete the current record and you can close the form. Notice also that there's only ever one form open at a time. So this close button actually closes the members form and reopens the main menu. All right, and likewise here, we have the members dogs. When it opens up, it closes the main menu, but when you close it, it automatically comes back to the main menu. We've also got the reports. So if we need the overdue fees report, and notice Passy is showing up on that because he'd only paid $20 of the $60 fee, so he's got $40 to go. Now, if they need to print that report, that's going to be a problem, but we've got on the main menu, which is still open behind here. So for the reports, we leave the main menu open, we position them on the screen so we can get to the show ribbon button, and then we can click back on the report. So if we want to print this report, we can go file using the ribbon and go print, and select a printer and also print it to PDF and all those sorts of things. All right, so when we're finished with that, we can just hide the ribbon again. All right, so that's kind of what's going on here. That we've got this main menu. When we want to do printing and other things, we can show the ribbon for a while, but then we can get it out of the way to do our normal work. Okay, so that's what we're building in this lesson, and it's going to be a long lesson, but it'll be great when this part's finished. Okay. Oh, we've also got an exit database button. We forgot about that. You click that and that closes down access and saves all of your work, okay? And it took us back to this previous screen that we were on. Okay, so to make it client ready, we're going to remove all those access controls. So notice we didn't have to use the ribbon and its save button or anything like that. So we cleaned up the form so there's minimal access components and it looks more like a kind of custom database, a custom application built for the client. So continuing on from the splash screen work, we're going to have those button controls that we showed you. That makes it a lot cleaner and easier to use, that they can do all of their work from this bank of buttons at the bottom and by using this screen here, and they don't have to go off to any access ribbon or access controls to do things, all right? So it makes it a lot better. Now remember, we're a bit of a slow talker, so we suggest you go to that tools cog on the video bar and just speed the video up. So click on that tools cog, make it have a speed of 1.5, okay, will work well, or even 1.75, and fix that up. Now, it's a long lesson, this one, so we suggest you take breaks. So in the video description, there'll be the usual video timeline index we have. So when you're up to one section, you finished it, you decide you want to take a break, when you come back, you can just click on the next section and continue on in the video. So make sure you make use of that timeline index and have breaks. Now, there is a start database for this lesson. So if you've been following our course and you've done the splash screen lesson, well, that's okay. You can just use the finished product from the splash screen lesson to start up this lesson. But if you're doing this as a one-off isolated lesson, we suggest you get the downloads and there'll be a link in the video description for them, and get the client button start database. So you'll get that in the downloads. You'll get detailed step-by-step build instructions. You'll get the VBA code, which we're going to be using in this lesson, the business case study, and you'll get a finished database version of this lesson. Now, note that on those pictures of the members and the dogs, unless you've been doing our course all the way through, they might not show up. Okay, and that's quite okay for doing this lesson. You don't need to have any images actually showing to do the lesson. So if your forms are showing with no images on them, that's fine. We're putting buttons on the form. It's nothing to do with the images in this lesson. And in the next lesson, we're going to show you how you can add a browse button to browse for images and put them in if images are missing, all right? So don't worry about not having images. That is quite okay. Now, the following tasks are needed for this lesson to get all that stuff which we just showed you in the finished working database. So we have those save buttons on both the members and dogs form, so that when we do a new record, we can save it. If we change someone's phone number, we can save that. We've got a delete button to delete the current member record. Now I think we forgot to show you that one. Okay, so in the members table, there's that one for Passy that we added with the photo that looks nothing like Passy, but we'll fix all that up in the next lesson. This one here, so we want to delete that record, all right? So we're going to use our delete button, which is on this bank of buttons at the bottom. Now, when you press delete, it's a bit confusing in Access because it's actually gone to the next record, Kylie Rhodes. It's not showing the Passy one, but don't worry about it. What Access has done is it's actually removed the Passy one from the form, and when you click this yes button, it's going to take the Passy one out of the table so that then it'll be permanently deleted. If you click no on this, see the Passy one comes back. Access hasn't deleted it fully. When we do delete, it deletes it from the form, and when we say yes, it will delete it from the table as well. So if we flick through these now, you'll notice there is no Passy record, okay, looking at those. So that's how the delete button works, and we'll show you how to do that in this lesson as well. So much to do in this lesson. Okay, so we've added the delete button and shown you how that works. The close buttons, which will close down the member or dogs form and immediately reopen the main menu button. Once we've got those close buttons, we don't need those little X things up the top of our forms, so we can take them out. For the previous, next, and new buttons, we actually use the go to record macro, which we haven't used before, but the previous and next doesn't quite work with the macros, so we have to write some custom VBA code, and we'll show you how to do that. Make the main menu form close whenever the members or dogs forms open up. So it's just setting it up like we showed you, so there's only one form on the screen at any time, which just declutters the interface and makes it a lot easier for people to use. And then finally, we've got that exit database button, which saves all your work and closes down the Southern Dog Club, as well as closing down access. And we need to fully test all of this as we're going along to make sure it's all good and it's all working. So like we said, it's going to be a long lesson. So take breaks when you need to, and then come back to the timeline and resume the lesson. Now, there are a few things you should really know already if you've done Access at all, or if you've been doing our course following along with it. So it's much easier to understand this if you've done the splash screen lesson. Now, what if you haven't done the splash screen lesson and you want to do that one first? You need to go to the Passie's World of ICT website. So we'll show you that. All right, so I've just Googled for Passie's World of ICT. You'll get to Passie World of ICT, all one word.com. And then you need to click this button here, this tab, the MS Access SDC, SDC standing for Southern Dog Club. And it'll go down here and you can see all the lessons that we've done. And it's got the splash screen lesson right here, database opening splash screen lesson. So this one, which we're doing now, the buttons lesson, will be added in there later on. We haven't done that yet. And then you can click to go to that lesson, but I've got a bit of a slow internet connection. Still waiting to get broadband optical here. Anyway, we won't talk about that. But okay, so that shows you an outline of the lesson. And here, yeah, there's a video you can watch, and there's also downloads you can get. So when you're getting downloads for our lessons, they're really cheap. Like, it's only $1.20 US to get the download materials for the lesson. So I suggest you get those. And if you're a teacher, look, it's only $3 US to get a class set. You can use the lessons with up to 30 students in a classroom at a time. So that's the licensing for it. So that's only $3 US. So I really suggest you just get these lessons. The video's great. It shows you everything you need to do, but it's really good to have the backup materials as well, especially the start database, so you can start everything properly when you're doing one of our lessons. All right, so things you need to be familiar with from the previous lessons as well is these. Down the bottom right-hand corner of Access, there's this little group of 3 icons, and you need to know those for when we're talking about them in the lesson. So the middle icon is called Layout View, and that's the one that we do our general work in. So we're using Layout View a lot to build things and change things. Form View is where we look at the finished product. This is what the client's going to see when they're using the product. They're not going to go into Layout View or Design View. Now, Design View we need to go into sometimes to do some specialized detailed design activities. All right, so they're the 3 different modes, and you need to know those because we're going to be talking about, okay, go into Design View and do this, go back to Layout View and do that, go to Form View and test it and see what it looks like. So make sure you know those different modes. Now, in many versions of Access, there's this command button wizard. Now, our Office 365 version does not seem to do this. It has a thing for turning the wizards on, but that doesn't seem to work in our version. So what we're going to do is, because different versions might be different, we're just not going to use the command button wizard. Plus, the wizard doesn't do everything that we need to do at all times. So what happens is, when you add a new button on, so we added this new button that's called Command 120, and this button wizard has popped up. So if this is happening at any time during the lesson, just click that cancel button there to just cancel the wizard, and then we can go in and do our own design building of the macros and the VBA code ourselves. So don't use any of the wizards in this lesson. If a wizard does come up, remember, just click cancel and it'll go away. Don't click finish because that can be a problem, because it'll put this first one that's selected on there. Make sure you click cancel, right, and get the wizard gone. Okay, and the last thing is starting up the database. Because we've set up the database that starts up all clean like this, we need to be able to get to the ribbon and get to the side navigation bar to do some of the building work for this lesson. So to get that side navigation bar back of all the Access components, which is not showing there, you just use the F11 key, function 11, which on a lot of laptops you have to press down a special function button like an FN button and then press the F11 at the top of the keyboard to get that happening, and that'll open up the side navigation navigation. If you want to close it back down, just do F11 again. And we need to show the ribbon. So we've got the show ribbon button here on the main menu, which we built in the previous splash screen record. So you will have to click that from now and then. You'll be using these show and hide ribbon buttons and the F11 key. Now, if you don't like doing it that way, there is another way which we showed you in the splash screen record. When you first double click to start up the database from your Windows folders, you can hold down the Shift key on your keyboard, and that'll bypass all of the startup settings, and it should just start up in Access normally with all of the Access components showing. All right, so make sure you hold that Shift down for about 5 seconds or so until the database, everything's loaded and everything's opened, if you're going to do that. So if you like doing that, you can. Otherwise, just get the database loaded up with the clean screen like this, and then you can press F11 and click Show Ribbon. All right. So making the client form buttons. We're finally ready to start the lesson. Unbelievable. It's taken us 17 minutes just going through a few things to give you the big picture. And now we're going to drill down and actually build the components. So this is a long lesson, so make sure you take breaks. So we've pressed the F11, done our function F11, and now we can see this navigation pane here of all the components. Now we want to work on the members screen first, so we're going to double click on that. You can also right click on that as well, and just right click and do open. Okay, that does the same thing, it'll open up the members form, or you can just double click it here and that'll open up the members form. And make sure you just use the X in the top corner to close the main menu. All right, so it should just have the members form open like this on our screen, and we're going into layout view, which remember is this middle one. And in layout view, you should be able to move your mouse here to the bottom of the form, get those double arrows and stretch the form down while you hold the mouse button down. And that will create this blank space here. So we need some room at the bottom of the form where we're going to make that bank of buttons. First, we're going to put a rectangle down, which they all go on top of. Then we'll put those 6 buttons, we'll make them and put them across the bottom of the form. All right, now we need to now switch to design view, all right, to do make this rectangle, background rectangle. So make sure you switch now to design view. All right, in design view, now you open up in design view. We did all this work to make the extra space. It's not showing there. So for some reason, design view likes squashing things up and not showing all of them. I don't know why, but you need to move your mouse to the very bottom here, get the double arrows, push down the mouse and drag this form down so we've got a whole bunch more room. And then you go, make sure you go to the top of this white bar. If you go to the bottom of the white bar, you're going to pull all this blank form footer area at the bottom. You'll have a big white bar or something at the bottom. You don't want that. So make sure you go to the very top of that white bar, get your double arrows and pull that down so we can actually see all of this dark maroon workspace for the members form. Right, now we need to get this background rectangle happening. Now, if you've done our previous lessons, you know about that. If you don't, it's okay. What you have to do is go to the design tab and then click this down arrow, because it's only showing a few of the design tools here. It's not showing all of them. And when you click that down arrow, what will happen is it'll open up the full set of design tools. And this is another reason why we had to go into design view and couldn't use layout view, because layout view doesn't have this rectangle tool and some of these other ones we need. Okay, so normally you're on the arrow, the cursor key, so that you can just go on your form and pick and click on things to highlight them and change them. But we're going to go on to the rectangle form. So you're going to click on the rectangle form to make it active. There's that control wizard stuff we told you that doesn't seem to work in our Access. But anyway, click on this rectangle so it's the active tool, and then what we can do is we can hold down our left mouse button and we can draw a rectangle and resize it. So we need to get this background rectangle here at the bottom of our members form while we're in design view. So do that. Then we need to change the background color of it. So you need to get out of the design tab up the top and go to the format tab, then go to the paint bucket. There's a little triangle arrow here. Click on that tiny little arrow. That'll open up all the colors. And we're actually using this one here, Maroon 3, which is located right there in the standard colors. And when you click on that, you should see your rectangle goes that kind of a maroon, dark, kind of reddish, pinkish color that we need. So get that all set up using the Format tab. So that's looking pretty good. We've got our rectangle and it's colored in that nice Maroon 3 color. We can now go back to layout view, that middle one, for the next lot of work that we're going to do. And we need to add these 6 buttons here across the bottom of the form. So just go to layout view just to move this around and resize it and make it look good and get it centered on the form at the bottom here. And then I think we're going to have to go back to design view. So we're always swapping around between these. So we're in layout view at the moment. We've got that all tidied up and looking good. Now we need to make these 6 buttons which are going on top inside that rectangle. Okay, so we need to flip over to design view. Okay, and in design view, make sure you go on the design tab up the top. And so this rectangle here with the 4 X's in it, that's for making buttons. So you need to click on that so it goes gray and that becomes the active tool. So it's kind of like you're picking up the tool and putting it in your hand, but it doesn't actually do anything. To use the tool, you need to go down the bottom here and just click in this area here. So because we're on the button tool, it should make a button at that spot on the form. Now in some versions of Access, like we said, there is that control button wizard that opens up to help you out. That's not what we're using. So if that wizard pops up at this stage when you put the button on the form, just click cancel on that wizard and close that wizard. All right. So different versions of Access do different things. Now, when you do that, here's our button. Now it's called Command 114. Yours might not be 114. It depends how many buttons you've made before, because Access just keeps us a number that's going 114, 115, 116. Yours might be Command 1 or Command 3 or Command 5. Doesn't matter about that number as long as it says Command. And so we've got our button there. Now you can use this gray square. If you click on that and hold it down on your mouse, then you can move it around. So that's kind of like a little handle that you grab it with to move it around, and you can resize it with those ones. So also, we don't want it saying Command 114. So if you go click and then click again in there, okay, what you should be able to do is type in, and we want to call that Prev, and then we want to resize it so you can click on it and get those orange kind of squares here and drag it back, and that's what we want to do, make it that size. Now, once we made one button, the great thing is that we can copy and paste to make the other 5 buttons we need. So I've got our previous button all looking good and made. So click on this button to select it. There's one more thing we're going to do. We're going to change that writing so it kind of blends more in with this lipstick pink color scheme that Juanita wanted for the members form. So on the Format tab, make sure you click so that previous button's highlighted. On the Format tab, go to this letter A tool, which changes the text color, and just we're getting this dark red color here to use for the text. All right, so now we've got the first button made with its dark red text. So make sure you clicked on that button so it's selected. And we're going to do copy and paste to make the other button. So you can right click and go copy, or you can just do the shortcut Control key and C. If you're used to doing like Control C, Control V to copy and paste, do it that way because it's faster. If you're not used to that, just click on the button, then right click and go to copy. And then you need to click off that button, just click in the rectangle anywhere and go right click and Control paste, or just use Control V, and you should get a second button appearing. And just repeat those steps because we need 6 buttons all together. So you need to do this Control C and Control V, or this copy and paste. You need to do this 5 more times so that you've got 6 buttons all across the bottom. And those 6 buttons will all be called Prev at the moment. Now to move them around, remember you use those gray items on top. Because you did copy and paste, they should all be the same size, which is great. Now, if you need to move the whole group around, what you can do is you can hold down the Control key and go click, 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 click until you've got them all in orange, and then you can push down your mouse and move them all around if you want to move them around as a group. All right, we obviously need to rename those buttons. So if you click on each, click off that so it's not highlighted, and then click on this Prev one, click again, and then change the text to say next. Click, click, this one needs to say new, click and click, this one needs to say save. So we need them to have these 6 names for what the buttons are. And finally, change to form view, that first view, and just see how it's looking, how the finished form would look for the client. And that's looking okay there, that we've got our bank and we've got those 6 buttons in it. So yay, we won't clap because that makes the dog bark. if you've watched all our previous lessons. Okay, so we've made all the buttons, so that's great. We've got all the buttons across the bottom of the form. Those buttons now in Form View, if you go and click any of these, they won't do anything, okay? They're just blank buttons, and what we now need to do is add actions onto each of those buttons so that they'll actually do something. So this would be a good time if you need a break. We've been going for about 25 minutes. So if you need to take a break, go get yourself a cup of coffee and buy the downloads for this lesson so that I can go to the real shop and I can buy a real cup of coffee. I have to make my own at the moment. No, buy the downloads because they're good and they'll help you with your learning. All right, so take a break and then go in the video timeline index, and you will need to go to the part that says making the save button work. All right? All right, welcome back if you have taken a break, and here we go. We're going to make that save button. We're going to work on that one first. So we'll do the easy buttons first, which are just simple macro buttons. Now, the previous and next buttons have to be done with VBA code, so that gets a bit complicated. So we'll leave those previous and next buttons till last. But let's get working on the save button. So you need to be in, which view are we in here? Looks like we're in layout view. So make sure you're in layout view, and it says here in layout view. Get on the design tab, click this property sheet icon, but first of all, make sure you clicked on the save button. So get into layout view, click on the save button like it says here. So do it in the order of the instructions, obviously. Then what you need to do is go to this All tab, the last tab, and that tells you what the name of that is at the moment. So even though we see save for the caption on the button, its actual name is Command 119, and we need to change that, all right? So you can just click in there and type, and we're calling it CMD save. Now, why are we calling it CMD save? Obviously, save sounds good, but why that CMD in front? Okay, in Access, the buttons, when you click a button, it does one or more commands and gets those things done. Like the command here will be to go and save the record. And so it's called a CMD. Now, people have done our Visual Basic VBNet course, Visual Studio course. They'll be saying, why don't we call it BTN for button like we do in Visual Studio, but no, in Access it's different. It's called CMD. So that's just a standard thing. They're just called a CMD. So it's CMD save, just like that. So type that in and press enter, and that'll change its name, okay? Then we need to go off the All tab and onto the Event tab. Notice up here now, it is calling it CMD save. So the idea is that it helps you later on if you need to go and look at things. When you click on them on the property sheet, it'll actually tell you their name instead of just some random number. And your numbers may differ to ours, remember. That's okay, as long as you've got sort of command and number and you change it to CMD save, that's okay. So I need to go to the Event tab now. The on-click event, if you click on these triple dots here, which is called the Builder button. Some people call it the Ellipsis button, but we call it the Builder button. And what will happen is this menu pops up and you need to pick Macro Builder, okay? So click Macro Builder, make sure that one's selected, and then click the OK, because we need to go into the Macro Builder for this. Now, if you've done our previous lessons like the splash screen and the main menu form lesson, this will all be familiar. But if you're not, just follow along carefully and you can learn all of this as we go. So this opens up this panel, which is bigger than what we're seeing here, called the macro screen or the macro pane or the macro panel. And there'll be this plus sign and a box. And what you do is you click the down arrow of the box there, and the action we want to do when someone clicks that Command Save button is, we want it to do a save record. So you have to scroll down here. They're in alphabetical order, so you'll have to get down to the R's and the S's, save record. So make sure you click on that one, and what will happen is save record will then be the action that that button does when it's clicked. And you can see that here it says, save records the action, so that's great. And then you need to click the save button here on this ribbon up the top, and then the close button, all right? So you can see that's a different ribbon. That's the Macro Builder ribbon, and you just click the blue save and then the red X, and then we've got that macro save, so we're ready to test it. So we'll just go on into a member here, the first one, Andy Akito, and we've changed her phone number. At the moment, it's well, we're going to change it to be 0400 222 333, all right, from what it was. And we click the save button, that save button which we just put on our form. Now in Access we'll probably get this message because we've been doing things in design view and layout view and changing stuff. It says, do you want to save your changes? Make sure you definitely click yes on that. When the client's using it, they wouldn't see this because the database is finished and we haven't made any recent changes to things. But just say yes on that, that's A-OK. And close the form with the X up the top and then just double click or reopen it and you should see that the modified phone number is present there, okay? So it did get saved, okay? So I think it was 222123 or something, so we've changed it to 333 on the end, and we did a save and we close that form, okay? And then when we reopen it, the data is still there as 333, so we know the save worked, all right? So that's how you can test your save button and get it done. So we've done the save button, 1 out of 6 buttons done, and the next button we're going to do is new for the new record. Remember we showed you at the start we could click new and we typed all that stuff in for Passy and added him and saved it as a new member. All right, so we're working on how that new button works for this one. So make sure you're in layout view, click on that new button on the form so that it's highlighted, selected in orange. Access does that orange around it. And now your button probably won't be called, when you go to the All tab of the property sheet, yours probably won't be called Command 118. Maybe it'll be Command 56 or Command 11 or 12 or something. Doesn't matter about the number. Don't worry, that's not the same as ours, but that needs to be changed, and we need to change that to say CMD new record. Okay, so this is the button that does the command to make a new blank record. So that's what we put on there, CMD new record, and then you'll see up the top it changes to that nice meaningful name of CMD new record. And then click over onto your event tab for that new button that we're working on. And just like previously, get on that triple dots macro builder there and click macro builder and click OK. And what'll happen is then it'll open up the macro ribbon and the macro screen. So on this little plus box, that's all it'll be, just this little plus box. You need to click the down arrow on that plus box, and we need the go to record. So there isn't actually there is no new record action. So you might be scrolling down here in the ends going, oh, there's no new record, there's no new record. Access has kind of condensed some things up, and we're actually going to make a new record. So anyway, you use go to record, that's the one you use, and then we're going to set up something else to make sure it just goes to making a new record. Okay, so go to record is the action we need to. That's our go to action. All right, so on this go to record action, there'll be a couple of boxes you can play around with, 3 of them here with down arrows. Just this record here at the moment will be on next. It's going to go to the next record. We just need to click that down arrow and change it to the new record, okay? So we need it to go to make a new record. So change next to new using that down arrow. And what should happen then is it should say go to record, and the record type you're doing is a new record. Okay, so that's done, and we can click the save and the close of the macro builder. These buttons up here at the top to save and close and get out of the macro builder, and that should be good to go. So we go to form view and we're going to test that new button out. So form view, remember this first view down the bottom right hand corner on those 3 icons, get on this one, form view, and then we're going to click that new button here, and that'll make Access build us a new blank record. Okay, so what should happen now is you should have this record that's just got all blanks in it, like we had at the demonstration when we showed you at the start, and we made this a record for Passy. And so here's what we typed in with a different address to what we used at the start. But anyway, just make up some name and some data and put it in there. And then after you've made that new record, it's important that you save it. Okay, so you need to now click our save button that we made and save that record. Now, if you close the form and reopen it and use these arrows here, because we haven't built our next and prev buttons yet, but just use these arrows for next and previous, you should be able to go through and find this Passy record. I think it should be record number 6 from memory in there, okay? So we've put the new record in, we saved it. So close your form, reopen your form, and just check that your new record's there, okay? And then we know it's all working. Now, there's obviously a problem with the photo. There it is at record number 6. We found the new record. there's a problem with the photo, but in the next lesson, we're going to further fine tune the client application. We're going to have this browse for photos button where you can go and pick and click a button off your computer and it'll get added onto your form. All right, so that's part of getting the database client ready, but we're not doing that in this lesson because we've got well and truly enough record work just getting these 6 buttons done on the form. All right, so 2 down, 4 to go. So we've got our new button, we've got our save button. The next one is the delete button. So go into layout view and click that delete button so it's highlighted. And then of course we have to change its name. Now ours was called Command 120, yours will be some other number. Make sure you're on the All tab of the property sheet and type in CMD delete record for the name. Should see it change up here as well, and save it, and that's all good. That's for the all, and we've got that done. Then you guessed it, we're going to the event tab. We're clicking on that triple dots and going to the macro builder again and clicking OK. And when we use the down arrow in the macro builder, this time we need the delete record action. So we're picking that action. So pick and click on that and it should say delete record in there. And then we can just save and close using those buttons up the top of the macro builder ribbon. All right, change over to form view, that first view, and use the bottom left-hand corner arrow. So we're just going to click that along until we find Passy. So here's that record, Paul Passy, and this one we want to delete because it's just some test record that we made. So this is an ideal time to click our delete button. So the next step is click on the delete button. Now Access will pop up this "Are you sure?" message. You're about to delete a record. Click yes if you don't want to be able. Click yes, basically, if you want to delete it, okay? So no accidental clicks and accidental deletes because you've got this nice confirm message here. But there is one little problem which we talked about at the start of the lesson. When that "Are you sure?" message comes up, the Passy record disappears and you see another record, the next record, number, this one for Kylie, and think, oh no, I don't want to delete Kylie, I wanted to delete Passy. What the hell's going on here? I'm not going to click yes on that because I don't want to delete her. I'll click no, but you actually have to click yes. As we explained, what's happened is that it's quite okay to click the yes button and it will delete the correct Passy record because technically the way Access works is that as soon as you click that delete button, it actually takes Passy off the form. Okay, so it's got an area memory where it's storing the form records. So it just takes Passy out of that little area and we don't see him anymore. And then clicking yes takes him out permanently by also removing the record that's in the table. Because remember, we've got the table where we store the data and that's where it's stored permanently. And these forms we're looking at are just a view of the table. So it takes Passy out of the view. We can't see Passy anymore, but we actually have to say yes on this so he gets deleted out of the table, okay? So that's that, and what should happen is Passy won't be there and that's all good. So we're on to the next button, the close button. So we're more than halfway there. We're 50% of the way there. We've done 3 out of our 6 buttons. This one's another simple macro one. So click on the close button, same old thing, go on its property sheet in the design tab, bring up the property sheet, go to the all tab, it's got that horrible name, Command 121 or whatever it is, change it to CMD close form, that's a much more sensible name we need for it, and then go to the event tab as usual, and we're going into the macro builder as usual. And when we use the down arrow in the macro builder, we're choosing the close window. We just want it to close up this form and not show it anymore. So that's the one we pick and click. Now there are some more settings to do, so we don't stop just there. That'll make the close window action. Now we need to make sure it closes the right form. So we want it to close the form. So use this down arrow, make sure it's on form, and pick for the form we're doing for this is the members form is the one we want to close. So make sure you pick members for that because it'll come up with members, dogs, main menu. Make sure you click members as the one you want to close. So that should have it all nicely set up like that. Now, what's this save prompt do? If you've been working on something and you haven't saved it, a little message will pop up saying, do you want to save your work? And make sure you say yes, okay? So we also always have that prompt, usually have that set to prompt. So if there's any unsaved work, Access will ask you, do you want to save it? And of course you do, just say yes, and that'll take care of that, okay? So we've got our close button done. Change over to form view and see if it works. So when you click this close button, what should happen is the same thing as clicking the X up in the corner, that form should just close down and disappear from your screen in Access. Now, because we've built that close form, we want to build this little bank of buttons here so they can do everything in their little button bank and they don't have to jump all around Access and find different things. So that X, we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to get rid of this little menu maker up here as well, okay? But we're doing that a little bit later on in the lesson. Now we need to get to the next and previous buttons. So this could be a time to take a break, because we've been going for 41 minutes. I think this is going to be a lesson that goes for over an hour by the looks of it. This would be a great place to take a break. And remember, in the timeline index, just come back to where it says making the next button work. All right, so same deal as usual. Go into layout view, click on that button so it's highlighted, and we need to fix up its name. So it's got that silly number name of the command. Change that to CMD next record, spelt exactly like this, because we're going to refer to this in the VBA code we write. So it's very important it's got that exact name with those big letters and little letters, uppercase and lowercase, CMD next record. So make sure you get that right. And the macro builder. Now if we do our usual thing, go to the macro builder, there is a go to record macro action you can pick. And remember, we use this to make a new record. And so instead of doing new, we pick next. That works 99% of the time, but there is a problem. When you get to the last record and press next one more time, Access can't go any further because you're at the end of your record. So if you're on your last record, you've done all your next, and you're at the last record, this is all right. It says you may be at the end of the record, click OK. That looks all good, and that is really nice. But for some reason, after you click that, Access puts this really ugly macro error message up, which is going to be horrible for the end client to see. It looks very unprofessional, and we'll put them into a panic. Stop all macros. They don't even know what the word macro means. They just mean they just know that they click a button and something happens, which is a good thing. And this time something's happened, which is a bad thing. So that's not good. We need to find another way of doing it. We're not going to use the macro. We are going to use some VBA code instead. All right, so we're not doing it by the macro method. Okay, so the solution is to write this custom VBA code which will detect when we're at the last record, and we're going to disable the next button so that no one can click it and cause that macro crash, and it'll grey out on the screen. Now, before we can do that, we need to set up the name for the previous button, because we're going to be using the previous button in the code as well, referring to it. So the previous and next buttons are kind of very tightly interlinked with each other. So just go to layout view for now. Click on that Prev button. So go to layout view, click on the Prev button, and just do that usual all tab on the property sheet. We don't want that command number thing. We want it to say CMD previous record. Make sure it's spelled exactly like that, because that's how we're going to refer to it in the VBA code. All right, now use the brown save icon if you've got the ribbon turned on in Access. If the ribbon's not turned on, you might be panicking, how could I save my work? Hold down the control key and press the letter S, which also does a save. So we just want to save what we've done so far, and that's all good. And making the next button work. So we need to change over to design view for this, because you cannot get into the code builder to write VBA code unless you're in design view in Access. So make sure you're on your members form, that button is clicked for the next button. So make sure you clicked on the next button and you go into design view. Okay. And then when we're on the design, so we clicked on that next button, we're on the design view, we go to the property sheet. Now we're not going to choose macro builder, we're going to choose code builder. All right, so you should be going into macro builders. We saw with the other four buttons. This time we're going into code builder. So very make sure you choose Code Builder and not Macro Builder. Now, okay, VBA code, this is getting a bit complicated and sort of, you know, this was supposed to be a beginner's course. Well, I guess we've gone beyond beginner's course now and we're getting more involved into making customized actions using VBA code. If you've done our programming course for VBNet, this will all make sense and be okay. If it's not all making sense, look, that's okay. You don't have to worry about how it understands, how it works and everything at this stage of your learning. Just get the downloads because there's a Word document there which has the VBA code. So just be able to highlight the whole lot in Word and copy and paste it onto the screen we're going to show you in a minute, and it should all work okay. All right, so what happens is when you use the Code Builder, it actually opens up a new application, which is the VBA code. So Microsoft Visual Basic for Applications. It opens up the coding application. It goes out of Access. Access is still there behind the scenes, but it's actually opened up a new app, which is the coding app, and it's set up a subroutine here is what it's called, a private sub and then an end sub. And this is for that next record. What's going to happen when we click that next record? That's what this means. Now there's a gap here and the cursor's blinking or being positioned at that gap. So where that gap is, that's where we put in all the VBA code. And you can type this in very carefully. If you make a mistake, it'll usually highlight in red or put a red squiggly underline and you know something's wrong. The code bits here need to be all in black. That's a single quote, which just means it's an explanation comment and not code. And that should come out kind of this dark green in Access. So it's very hard to see the difference between the black and the dark green actually. So this isn't actually blue when you type it in, it's black. So see how this is a black color here mostly. So we need this dim index position, dim total records. Now what's that all about? We need to just set up some variables in memory where Visual Basic Applications, VBA can store things, okay? And we just need whole number integer values. So that's what they're doing. And now we set the next record button access action. So we want it, when it's clicked, we want it to do the command in Access to go to record, and we want it to do the next record. So we use this AC next. All right, so if you did our splash screen lesson, you know how we were doing that AC toolbar yes, AC toolbar no to hide and close the ribbon. Here we're just doing AC next as the access action that we want it to do, or the action we want it to do is the next record. Now we need to get the total count of records, how many there are in the form. All right, so we just say total recs, which is our variable we set up here. Total recs equals me, which means talking about the particular form we're currently on, record set dot record count. So that's going to get behind the scenes. It'll go into Access and work out, okay, there's 6 member records, so the total record count is 6. Okay, now get the cursor index position we're currently up to in the record set. All right, so Access, as you're doing flipping through the records, Access actually calls the first record record 0, and then the second record is record 1, the third record is record 3, the fourth record is, no, the third record is record 2. It's always kind of counting one back from what we do as humans. If you've done our VBNet course, you'd understand arrays and indexing and how systems number things, but if you don't, that's okay. So it's just finding out where in the list of that records we're actually up to at the moment from doing all our clicking, and then it adds 1 on because the computer starts counting at 0. We start counting 1 bigger than that at the number 1, and so it'll set itself up to the human number. So that's what that's doing. Now, if the index position is total recs, that means we're right at the end and we're on the last record. So we don't want them to click next again and get that horrible macro error. What we want to do is we want to make sure the previous button is still enabled, so it's still showing on the screen that you can use it. And we want to move the focus or get the cursor to go onto that previous button. We want to set this next button, we want to disable it. So we go the next record button dot enabled equals false. And what that does is that makes it so that they can click that next button as much as they want, but it won't actually do anything, and it'll show grayed out on the screen so that it's not active anymore. So that's the key thing, setting the next record as enabled false. Then it can't try and do the next record and it won't get that macro crash. Now, if the index position, if we're not up at the end, we must be somewhere between the first record and the end record. So if that's the case, we can have both our buttons enabled. So if we're somewhere in the middle at the moment, we're not at the first record and we're not at the end record, life is good, and we can just make both the previous and next buttons that they can click them and use them. All right, so that's the code you need to put in, and that's me trying to teach you how to be a VBA programmer in 5 minutes. But look, if you don't understand it, that's okay. This is what programmers do. And if you were building this application, maybe you get to a tough thing like this, you would get someone who's a VBA programmer just to help you out with a few things. Anyway, we get all that in carefully, and there's no red on it, and it's all good. Now, how you save it and get back to access is you don't go clicking any of these other things or changing. There's a lot of things you can do in VBA. All you need to do is click this save button. So that's what it should look like when it's typed in. So notice the stuff is in black that access and VBA is going to do. The stuff is in green with single quotes in front of each line, just explaining what it's doing. And that's all ready. So click the save button, then you click this X up the top to close it, not this one, but the one right up the top. Okay, so you just need to do save and then close, and that will take you back to access. Now we can't actually test this next button until we've done the code for the previous button as well, because they're kind of tied in with each other. So we're not going to test it just yet. We've got our code for the next button done, and now we'll do the previous button code. So make sure in design view, make sure you clicked on the previous button this time, and then go to the event tab and go to that triple dots event builder, but don't go to macro, go to code builder and click OK. And what will happen is it takes you into the code builder, but notice, hang on, this is all the stuff we just did for our next button. Why doesn't it give us a brand new blank screen? Well, it doesn't. Any code you do for any buttons is all going to go on the same screen, but how you can tell what is by the name in here. That's why I wanted to rename these and have them as the right name. So this is the stuff we're going to do here. So Access has put the cursor down here. It said, oh, you did all that stuff for the next button. Oh, you want to do some more stuff for the previous record button? Well, that's okay. We'll do all that down in here. So that's where you put the code in. And the code that you need to put in is this code here. So it's the same idea, but we're checking whether the index position is 1 this time. Instead of checking whether we're right at the end, we're checking whether we're on that first record, because we don't want them to press previous another time and try and go back beyond the first record to the left, because that will cause the crash of the macro. So we're just doing that we're setting the previous record enabled to false. So as soon as they get back to the first record, it'll disable the button, it'll go light gray, so clicking it'll do nothing. And that's the main thing we're doing with that one. Okay, so it's the same sort of VBA code. We won't really explain it any more than that, really. So you need to get all that typed in carefully, or just get the downloads and copy and paste it out of the Word document, which will be a lot quicker and easier. So now we can test that we've got both buttons set up, and there's no red squiggles or nothing showing up in red, so it looks like that code's all okay. So we can click that save button and the X exit button up the top, and we're ready to test them. So we can be on a record, and we can click the previous button and it takes us to the previous record. If we click the next button, it would take us to this next record. So that's all working, flicking through the records using our previous and next buttons. When we get right back to the start, if you keep clicking on previous here, what will happen is it should gray out. So when you're on record number 1 of 6 down here in the left-hand corner, that'll gray out, so it's inactive, and so they can't keep clicking it and get that macro error. Likewise, when they get right up the end by you going next, 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 the next button should gray out, so they can't click that and go further on beyond the end of the records and cause a crash. So we fix the macro crash error, all right? So sometimes the built-in things don't work the way we want them to, And so we need to go to make some custom VBA code. And this is getting quite advanced. This is now Microsoft Access Advanced Lessons, okay? So getting it client ready does take a bit of work to do it and a bit of technical work. All right, now you need to make those same buttons, the exact same 6 ones for the dogs form. So just follow the same steps, but the buttons will need different names. So remember when you're renaming them from like command 94 to be CMD something, you'll need the CMD Prev dog, the next dog, CMD new dog for the new record button. So when you're naming your buttons, just name them these names because they're the names which will be different from the member names, so that'll be all good. When you get to the previous and next buttons, this is the code you will need, so it's very similar to that other code, but this is the one for the dog. So if you get our downloads, you'll get that in the Word document looking exactly like that on these 2 pages of the Word document. You can just highlight all of this dim down to end if here with your mouse, and you can copy and paste that in. That'll be probably easier than typing it and save you making typo mistakes. And so you should have the same bank of 6 buttons. If you're wondering about what color that blue is, that background, it's actually this blue right here. So it's on theme colors. The bottom blue there is what we use for that rectangle, if you're wondering what that is. And I think we just left the text black because that looked okay. We didn't have to make it dark navy blue or anything, but you need to get all that done for the docs form. So they'll test out, that's your challenge task really, check out that you know how to make buttons, and you're now an expert at making buttons for forms in Microsoft Access. So well done. But we still have some other things to do. So let's do a checkpoint and check out what we have done. So we've made the save button, we've made the delete button, we've made the close button, we've made the go to record for the new record. We had to use VBA code to do the previous and next buttons. We've done those. Now we've been doing full testing to make sure everything works, so that's all good. So we're up to this next. Now that we have our own custom close buttons, we can clean up the form headings, get rid of that little X because we don't need it to close the form because we've got our own super duper custom close button. So this might be a great time to take a break because we're coming up on nearly 1 hour into the lesson. Great time to take a break. And then in the timeline index for the lesson, just go to where it says lesson checkpoint and then you can resume from there. That's the trouble with 1 hour videos. Your coffee goes really cold. Anyway, it's not all about my first world problems. No, this is what we need to do next. We're going to get rid of that little X because we've got our own close button. We're going to make the main menu form close whenever we start up the members or dogs forms. So we're now going to do the things so that only one form displays at a time, like we saw when we demonstrated this at the start, and it's not all cluttered up. So what we need to do with those close buttons, they're working fine closing down the members and dogs form, but we need to also add a second action onto each button so that it will reopen the menu form. All right, so we're going to do that. And last of all, we're going to add this exit database button, which saves all your work, closes down the Southern Dog Club, closes down Access, and takes you back to your Windows folders or whatever Windows screen you were on previously. So let's get into it. So we need to clean up the dogs form. We'll do it on the dogs form first this time instead of on the members form. We always jump in and do the members form. We'll do the dog form. So we've got our own little close button here. Okay, and it's saying members dogs up here, and we got the X. Now we don't need those things. We don't need this little fly up menu thing. We don't need this members dogs. We don't need that X. So we're going to change it so it just says Southern Dog Club up here because it says members dogs down in there. So I'll just have that say Southern Dog Club, no X there. So it's really nice and clean and customized and looks like a professional interface now. So we're going to be doing that. And that won't be really hard to do as long as you don't make mistakes. So go to Layout View, get on the Design tab. Now on the Property sheet, make sure you use this down arrow to make sure on Form. We need to do properties for the whole entire form. All right, so make sure you're on form, and then what you do is just change the caption to say Southern Dog Club. Caption is what appears at the top of that white line. So we're going to have it say Southern Dog Club. If you wanted it completely blank, I guess you could just make that completely blank as well. But anyway, we're just going to have Southern Dog Club there. And now to get rid of that X and that little menu box at the side, you use this control box. So we're on the Format tab, we've changed the caption, go down to Control Box, and that needs to be set to be No. Okay, so that little box on the side, if you actually click on that, what happens is it gives you some menu items. Now, we don't want people to minimize and maximize forms or move them around or change their size, and we don't need them to use that to close the form, because we've got our own little close button that we made. So, Control box, no. We want to remove that and not have it there. So what will happen now is you have the nice clean form, which has the whole bank of buttons here where they can do everything. They could still do previous and next using these little arrows, but they're really tiny, and you could slip with your mouse, and that kind of sunshine symbol to make a new record isn't clear at all. So it's much better just having them just work in this bank of buttons. They don't have to go up there to close. They don't have to go right up the top left-hand corner and turn the ribbon on and try and find that little brown save button. They can do all of their work on this bank of buttons, okay? So this is how we make it look really professional and really good, although it was a little bit hard because we had to use VBA code for the previous and next buttons. But don't let that put you off. So we need to have control box no, form caption Southern Dog Club. Do that on the members form, and on the main menu, we're not going to have Southern Dog Club. Make the caption say main menu, all right? So that'll just be a little bit better, but notice there's no X there, so I got rid of the X's. So that's all looking really good. Now we need to do that thing where we only have one form on the screen at a time. So we need to make the main menu close as soon as we click. If we click to open up the members form, we want the main menu to just go away, all right? Which is what we saw happening in our application when we demoed it at the start. So this button and this label both have actions on them at the moment, which open up the screen form. So we need to leave those actions there. They're quite okay. So the open form action is great when you click either on this button, and there's another one for if you click on the label, it's going to do open form, open up the members form. Now we need to add another action on there, which you can do, which is going to be close window and close the main menu. So this is the new stuff we're going to add in, and we'll show you how we do that. So a button can do more than one thing. So at the moment that button's just opening up the members form, which opens up over the top of this main menu, and you can still see the main menu behind it, which isn't really great. It kind of clutters up the screen. But we can make a button do more than one thing. It can open up that members form, and it can also close down this main menu form, and that's what we need to do. So how we do that is just click on that button in layout view, so it's selected in orange. Go to the event tab, all right, click on your triple dots, go into the macro builder. Now in the macro builder, we've already got our open form. Don't change that, leave it as it is, it's working perfectly. But see, there's a plus sign and a box here to add another action. So click that down arrow, and the action we need is a close window action, because we want to close up a form, and make sure the form that we're closing isn't the members form, it's the main menu form, okay? So you need to set up that close window with these drop down arrows as closing a form. We want to close the main menu, and then of course up the top do the usual save and close on the macro ribbon to save what we've just done, and test the buttons in form view. And what should happen is when you click on that button, which we just modified so that it both opens up the main menu, the members form, and you can see that's opened up nicely, but notice it's also now closed down the main menu. This is not sitting behind there poking out being a distraction. It's completely gone, and we've only got one form on our screen. And it looks even better when we run it for the client like we saw at the start, because none of this stuff is showing around the edges either. We've just got a plain screen with all we've got is our members form, and that's really nice and neat to work on it. So I'm going to make the same sort of changes to these other three things. So you need to click on this, get into the macro builder by clicking on the triple dots, and you need to add a close window form here, and it needs to be the main menu. So you need to do that on this one, and then do it on that button, do it on that one. Leave the open form, which is on each of these three things. Just add another action using the drop down arrow underneath on that box to close window, and make sure you're closing a form, and it's the main menu form. And then it should all work so that there's only one form on the screen at a time. Now, what we need to do now is, you've got just your members form on the screen, but when you close the members form, we want it to bring back to us the main menu. Okay, so it's going to reopen the main menu. So on that close button, we're going to click on that in layout view so it's highlighted. Get on this macro builder. You can also, rather than have to go in here on the property sheet if you want to, because that's kind of the long way maybe, and people who know Access might be thinking, oh, why is you always going in that property sheet to do it the long way? You can actually right click on the button and choose build event. That does the same thing. All right, so I just thought we'd let you know that. And what will happen is, on that macro builder, we've got our close window, so I want to leave that alone. That's all working beautifully. But we're going to add another action to open up a form, so when it closes, it can reopen up the main menu, okay? So here you click main menu, make sure it's form. So what we've got here is that when you're on the members, it's going to close the members form, but also as part of having clicked on that button, it's going to reopen the main menu form. So test the changes. So we're here, we've got our members form, it's the only form showing. We click the close button and it disappears completely. But what happens is, we don't have a completely blank gray screen. We open up the main menu so they can pick another main menu task to work on here. All right, so this is making a really professional client based ready application. So we need to make the exact same changes for the dogs form. Then when you click the dogs form close button, at the moment it's just closing the dogs form. We want to also have an open action, so it'll open up the main menu as well. And we're on to the last thing at last, having shot over the 1 hour limit, which I did not want to exceed, but it has happened, so that's life. We need to get into design view on the main menu form and go to our 4x1, which is for doing buttons, and get on that tool to activate it, and make one more button down the bottom here. And what that button's going to be is to exit the database and save all of your work and close everything down. Now, if that button wizard pops up, that command button wizard, just use cancel to close that down. And what we're going to do is click in that and rename it so it says exit database, a much nicer name. And then let's do it the shortcut way. Let's just right click on it and go to build event, which will take us into where we can pick what we want to do. And this one's just a simple macro builder. So we're not doing code builder, we're just doing back to good old macro builder, and click OK. And the one we need is the quit access, and we want to make sure that when we quit, it's got the save all option added on. So what you do is, on your usual kind of, this macro builder thing, use the down arrow. We're getting the quit access one. That's the one you need to pick and click, and just make sure on the options it's on save all, because what we want it to do is we want access to save all of the work we've been doing before it actually closes the Southern Dog Club application and fully closes Access itself. So very important that save all is on. Now it does give an exclamation mark that quitting the application is risky because they might have a whole bunch of things open, but look, it's okay, it works all right, so just don't worry about that too much, and just do save and close. And when we test the database, it should all look like it did when we showed you at the start. So you double click it to open up. Now, the first time you do it, it might say bring the yellow bar across the top, enable content, and be a bit messy. But once you've enabled content, if you close Access down and double click again, it will work all cleanly like this. So what happens is, it opens up, we get the splash screen showing for a little while, then we get our nice little main menu here showing, and when you click exit database, it'll just close everything down, and we started our database from in this folder. So it shows us this was our back screen, so we go back to that and we don't have access anymore. Okay, so it could be a different screen for you depending on what you started it on. So that completes the learning for this lesson. So I've learned all about customized buttons to make an application client ready. So this has been quite a bit of work, and we need to save the database as usual. So make sure you click up the very top left-hand corner, do the show ribbon. So the ribbon showing, and do File Save As, and save the database. Now, because the main menu's open and we can't kind of close it, it's going to say, because we took away the X at the top, it's going to say if Access asks to close open objects, just click yes on that. So this box will probably pop up. Just make sure you say yes on that. And then we're going to call it SDC Client Buttons Finished. That's the name of it. Make sure it's an ACCDB type of file. It's got that ACCDB on the end, and click the save button. Now, when you save, Access might auto restart the Southern Dog Club application, okay? But that's okay. What you can do is you can just use that main menu exit database button to exit completely, and then everything should be okay. So if after you've done this save, we found for ours that then restarted the database and showed us the splash screen and then shows the main menu. So what we had to do on the main menu was just click on exit database, and then everything closed down properly. So we've done a lot of work. We did all this work here developing the application. We added that splash screen in, that was the first step to start making it client ready. Now, we thought we could do the client ready stuff in one lesson, but look, it's taking a lot longer than that. And already this has been a 1 hour, 10-minute lesson. So we've done create the customized buttons on the forms. But if we were going to do the add buttons, so form images can be browsed, and plus the final tidy up and organizing for backup of data, oh my goodness, it'd be like a 2 hour, 3 hour lesson or something crazy. It's crazy enough that it went for over an hour. So we've got another lesson still coming up to add buttons so that we can browse for images and load them. So that'll be the next lesson. Then the final lesson hopefully won't be a 1 hour lesson. It should be shorter than that. There's a few little things we need to do. And then it's finally ready to install on Juanita's machine, and she can start using it. And that's going to be the job done, and that'll be very exciting. So remember, there is our website, Passy's World of ICT. If you want to see all the lessons and know what order you should have done them in to complete them, or if this is your first lesson, you thought, gee, maybe I'll go back and do some of those other ones as well, just click the MS Access SDC tab. And so that's the end of the customized buttons lesson. So give it a big thumbs up, because it's taught you everything you need to know about customized buttons and macros, plus VBA code as well. So you've got a sort of a very quick VBA course, which you probably didn't understand if you're new to it. If you've done some VBNet coding, it'd be all right. But don't worry, just get the downloads and copy and paste it. And when you get the downloads, that contributes to my buy a cup of coffee fund, because, contributes to your learning. That's the main thing. So subscribe to our channel, and then you'll see when that next video is coming up. That's going to be really neat, because you'll just be able to click in that bank of buttons. We'll add another button called photo, and you can just click on the photo and then browse just like you're opening a Word document or something, find that picture and put it straight into the form. So it's going to be really neat, and we'll probably use some more VBA code doing that. So we'll see you in the next lesson.